Are you ready? Can crush us. It don't really get no better than this the podcast that you're looking for if you're really heavy into wrestling. Hosted by the Mark. Energy that's so amazing. Gotta keep it entertaining. Rep the Can Crusher Nation. Yeah, you know what's going down in the ring. Lights out when you hit a ding ding. Knock them out like boom bada bing. Hold it down, you can crown me the king. Got a shout out to the Miz and Duke the Dumpster. We choke slamming everybody. Power driving, hit them with a face buster. Yeah, this the show you need and it ain't no need for waiting. Mark, hold it down for the Can Crusher Nation. All about wrestling and keep it entertaining. Can Crushers Wrestling Podcast. Time to break them, let's go. Yeah. Can Crushers. Yeah. Can Crushers, let's go.
It's Miss Reality, Maddie Runkowski, and you are listening to the Can Crushers Wrestling Podcast. I mean, it's not as real as me, but you could listen to my episode.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another Can Crushers Wrestling Podcast. I am your host, Mark the Mark Martinez, Maddie Runkowski, Ren Sinclair, however you know her. She was on the podcast. That's what we do here on Can Crushers. We grab independent wrestling stars and make them famous. No, God, you do not even say that, Mark. But guys, I am uber excited to have my guest on this week. All the way in Montreal, Quebec, Canada. Coming on the show today is the Cobra, Katrina Creed. You've seen her recently on ROH. She's kicking ass and taking names all over Canada. So, international again. But you guys know that because Toronto loves us. Toronto loves Can Crushers. So, thank you. Guys, man, is there a difference? This is a real question that I'm thinking of, so I'll have to jot this down. Difference between wrestling in Canada to America? I've never seen a match in Canada. Is there the fans different? I mean, I've seen it on the pay-per-views or the premium live events or anything like that, but is there just a little bit of difference? And of course, you guys know all the other questions that I'm going to ask the Cobra, so we're gonna dive right into it. All right, but beforehand, you guys know we have to pay the bills. Guys, check out Collar and Elbow Wrestling. The wrestling brand with all the cool t-shirts, hats, hoodies, tees, and all the cool stuff that Al Snow and the Hooligans have down there. Buy it all up. Buy it all up because you've heard me talk about this for years now. Since they've become, affiliated with Can Crushers, man, I've gotten some sweet shirts. I've gotten some cool merch. And you know how sometimes you wash stuff and it starts to shrink, it loses its freshness and everything? Collar and Elbow doesn't. That property of Collar and Elbow, one of the first shirts I got, still amazing. To this day, it's like brand new. Or my wife does great wash. I know she does great wash before I even get thrown under the bus for that. But Collar and Elbow stuff is really cool. So we have a promo code for you. After you buy all the cool stuff from Al Snow and the Hooligans, use the promo code CANCRUSHERS, and you'll save 10% off your entire order. That's awesome within itself. We also have an affiliate code with WWEshop.com. Guys, and we're very transparent with this because whatever you buy from there, you do help support Can Crushers, which is awesome. So thank you. So if you're going to buy something, you want the new Cody shirt or a Rock shirt or the CM Punk shirt or the Becky stuff, whatever you're going to buy from there, please, in our show notes, is the affiliate code. And I said, we're transparent. Sometimes you'll get a discount on stuff. Sometimes you won't. But you're going to buy it anyway. So help support a podcast. That would be really awesome. But where else can you listen to us? Well, you're probably listening on your favorite app right now, right? Your Facebook or Spotify or iTunes or Google Play. And the list goes on and on where we are, which is awesome. So continue there. Like, share, do ratings if you can. That would be awesome. Tell us we suck. Anything. We love the ratings. We love reading them every once in a while. Maybe we should do a show like that. Duly noted. But there's also a new one out there. It's called Podurama. New, maybe it's some of you guys, but we've been on Podurama for a long time. And if you sign up right now, you'll get 50% off a lifetime membership. But Mark, why switch to Podurama? Because it's seamless. You know how sometimes you drop a song on another app or whatever, when you close it, anytime that you pause on it and you go to a different device, a different way from your phone to your computer to your laptop or whatever, it stays and it just seamlessly carries over, which is really awesome. I've been using it recently, and I really do love it. And listen, the notables are around us too. So there's Busted Open, there's JR, there's Stone Cold, there's yada yada yada, and they're all linked around Can Crushers Wrestling Podcast. So that's awesome. Guys, don't forget, this weekend is Ask Can Crushers. How can I get involved, Mark? Well, you can send us an email at cancrushers69@gmail.com. Ask us any question. We'll answer it on air. Or you can slide into any of our DMs, Facebook, X, and Instagram. We're there. Ask a question there. Or you can phone us. And trust me, if you phone us and ask us a question, I guarantee that you will make it on air. 814-299-6687. You have 3 minutes to ask whatever question you want. We'll answer it on air. So we're excited. So don't forget that. All right, you've heard enough about me and everything that's going on here. Let's get to the interview with the Cobra, Katrina Creed.
Wrestling. A love and a passion we all share. I've started a wrestling brand. The wrestling brand. A brand founded on the aspects of wrestling. Two entities working together to create a product that connect emotionally for people everywhere. Collar and Elbow is the brand. Passion and love for wrestling is the drive. I am Al Snow, and this is Collar and Elbow, the wrestling brand.
What's going on, you guys? This is the CEO of Shane Taylor Promotions and the baddest of all time, Shane Taylor, and you are listening to the Can Crushers Wrestling Podcast.
Welcome back to Can Crushers, folks. You heard in the intro how excited I was to go international once again here on Can Crushers. We're heading all the way to Montreal. One of my favorite baseball teams was there, the Expos. Man, I love them. Nonetheless, the one, the only, the Cobra, Katrina Creed. Katrina, how are you doing tonight?
Hey, I'm doing pretty good. How are you?
Excellent, excellent. Do you remember the Expos? Probably not, huh?
I do. Yes, I do. I remember even when they still existed in Montreal before they got traded. So not a huge baseball fan, but I do remember that. It was gutting for us as a community from what I remember.
It was. I know this is a wrestling podcast. I would so want the Expos to come back, but that's just me. So nonetheless, how's everything going? How was your holidays and all that before we get into the meat and potatoes?
Yeah, I mean, I've been doing pretty good. Wrestling wise, it's been pretty bumping. So really can't complain with that. Had a restful holiday season for the most part, other than this crazy match I partook in on New Year's Eve. But other than that, it was pretty relaxing, which was nice for a change of pace. How were your holidays?
Crazy. As a garbage man, with no days off, and you're like, I don't care about your job. But yeah, it's just work. And, yeah, crazy from one family to the other family. You understand. You just live, love, and learn, right? So let's do the rewind.
Oh yeah, definitely, for sure.
This is my favorite part. We'll rewind. When you were a little Cobra, okay? Who introduced you to professional wrestling? Mom, Dad, Aunt Sally, Uncle Joe? How did you find this crazy sport?
I don't fully remember, but I think what it was is I used to hang out at my cousin's place a lot, and we would just flip through channels. And I remember very distinctly like my first memory of wrestling was seeing The Undertaker in his Ministry era and just like popping up on the screen. And I'm an alternative chick now. I was apparently even into darker stuff when I was like 6 or 7, whenever that was. And I was just like drawn to him. So I remember being really um, just enthralled with what I was seeing. And that is like my first like memory associated to wrestling. And of course, when I was a kid, The Undertaker was one of my favorites. Um, so yeah, it was by chance. I don't think my cousins in particular were into wrestling. We just kind of watched it together, and it stuck a bit more with me than it did with them. My grandfather was actually really into wrestling too, so I wonder if maybe he was watching it with me when I was younger, and I just don't remember. It's very possible. But he was really into wrestling, and some of my older cousins were too. So maybe I was exposed to it at a younger age, and I don't remember. But yeah.
The Undertaker, the Ministry of Darkness. By the way, that era of Undertaker doesn't get enough love. That's one of my
I
favorites.
know.
Hanging Steph up
I
on the
know.
cross.
Yeah. I really dug it, especially as a kid. Yes. I remember seeing that as a kid and being like, what the hell? Like, I thought they were legitimately sacrificing her. And I was obviously scared for her, but I'm like, wow, this is crazy. Like, what's happening? Yeah, crazy moments during that era for sure.
Yeah, I was teens, high school, and it was kind of freaked out for me. So being 6, 7 years old, you're like, what is this?
Yeah. Yeah. It was crazy.
So you brought up The Undertaker as some of your favorites, but who else did you kind of transition to as a child?
When I was a kid, I loved the Hardy Boys. I love Jeff Hardy and Lita in particular. They were really my favorites. I was so mad whenever they lost the TLC matches. They lost both of them. I was pretty pissed. And it made me hate Edge and Christian for a while. But I was really into them. Of course, like everyone loved The Rock, Stone Cold, of course, right? Which kid didn't love them? They were two of my favorites for sure. Um, Even now, I think The Rock was just so hilarious on his delivery when it came to promos and stuff like that. There's just bar none. There's not many that are cut out like him when it comes to delivering promos. So he was just great. Those are just some of my favorites growing up. As a kid, that obviously changed as I got older. I kind of, still have love and respect for them, but I ended up being, well, loving and being inspired by other wrestlers as I aged. But yeah.
We'll get to those, I'm sure. I'm sure we'll get to those. So, talk a little bit about your background before you made the transition into wrestling, because you were kind of building yourself up for wrestling no matter what, right?
I mean, I guess wrestling is always something that was in the back of my mind, and it was always something I thought I could do, but I thought it was just that kind of a fantasy. So like, it was something I always thought about and entertained here or there, and I just never really. I just kind of went through my life doing other things, thinking, oh, it would be cool if, not thinking I would actually end up doing it. And because I started quite late, I started in my late 20s. Um, and I thought I would just try it, and I maybe wouldn't even like it, but I was like, oh, maybe I'll give it a go. And I ended up loving it. So I don't know if I don't know if I was really preparing for wrestling consciously. Maybe unconsciously through my experiences and stuff like that. For sure, I learned a bunch of things that are useful in wrestling. Um, but yeah, I can't say that I was consciously building up to that.
Well, I was hinting at like martial arts background.
Oh yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. So that I started taking up again. I thought it would be really cool to learn a martial art, and Muay Thai was always something that spoke to me. So I started doing that. Um, And primarily, I started doing it, even though it says I have a background in wrestling, I started doing it primarily to have good cardio for matches. So I actually, even though I was always drawn to it, it's something I wanted to do. I did it primarily just so I could keep up in matches because believe it or not, you need a lot of cardio when it comes to wrestling.
You really do. You really do.
Yeah.
So when was that aha moment then? Since you've dubbed yourself late. Listen, you're not DDP that's only starting in his 40s, so you're definitely much younger than that. When was that aha moment? You're like, I'm doing this wrestling thing.
Yeah, so the match that really like made me think and really consider it was actually it was a New Japan match, and it was Jay White versus Kenny Omega. And I was in school at that point, so I took like a studying break. I was following JR, who just like was commentating on different matches for New Japan at that point and posted that. So I was like, oh, this looks cool. And it was such a great match. I was really into it from beginning to end, and it was a really long match. I think it was like 30 minutes or 40 minutes. Like, it was a long match, and I was glued to my screen from beginning to end. And I was like, man, this is still pretty freaking badass, you know? Like, I wonder if maybe I'll give it a try, you know? So I actually, coincidentally, um, I actually worked with my coach at a cafe. He was my manager. And years before, he was telling me that he was opening up like a wrestling school and how I should try. And I'm like, yeah, you know, it could be cool. And I just never thought about it fully until then. And I was like, yeah, I remember like Andrew had that school. I wonder if it's still going on. So I sent him a message. And then he just told me, he's like, yeah, you know, come in for sure. We're still doing it. And after the first class, I loved it. I just was so into it from the get-go. And that was it.
So you're picking the school wasn't that hard. That was usually the next question. Like, how many schools did you look at before? But it was like gift wrapped for you.
Yeah, pretty much. Like, there's actually a few other schools around here. And at that time, I think there was only one other school called Torture Chamber. And that's actually the school that came up when I was like researching schools until I thought I remembered Andrew. And then when I messaged him, I'm like, well, I already know him. So I may as well just go there, you know?
Right. So you said after first day, you were like, oh, this is nothing. Did you walk in with it? Because training stories are almost better than match stories sometimes. Did you walk in with a little chip on your shoulder that, hey, I got this, and da-da-da-da-da. But week 2, you're like, holy moly, I'm out.
I gotta say, I actually was able to keep up with the trainings, which we also were being trained Magic Matt Menard in AEW currently. And around that point, he had just gotten signed to WWE. So he was actually giving us the cardio workouts they would do for the tryouts, and they're pretty freaking insane. Um, but somehow I was able to keep up with it. There were some people, I heard stories of people puking
Right.
and just quitting part way. It's weird. I wasn't ever really crazy athletic, but I was able to stick with it. And I think I was just so driven to prove myself. I guess I kind of did have a chip on my shoulder. I wanted to prove myself. Um, and I wanted to keep up with the guys. It was primarily guys at that point, right? I grew up with 2 older brothers. They're like 10 years older than me. So I always was kind of like the young girl, you know, that would have to keep up with like her older brothers. So like that's always been my mentality in life. And so I just was like, fuck it, I'm not going to give up, and I can do it just as good. And I'm just going to push myself. So yeah, there wasn't really any time where I like thought about quitting or puked. Except for one time where I got a really bad migraine and then I puked, but it was because of the migraine. It wasn't the cardio.
Really?
So, it was.
Your story. It's your story.
I swear, no. The migraine and the puking happened like 2 or 3 hours after practice. So it wasn't migraine. Just saying.
So it's probably a slight concussion is honestly what it
Well,
was.
maybe I thought about it, but I asked Matt Lee, my coach at the time, and I'm like, man, I thought it was a concussion at first. And I'm like, I don't remember hitting my head. I'm like, did you see me hit my head like at some point? And he's like, no, like no, everything was fine. I actually went to go see a doctor a couple days later to be safe, and he's diagnosed me with a migraine, supposedly. So, but it's always one of those things where I'm like, I wonder if I got a concussion somehow, and it came later. I'm not really sure, to be honest.
Yeah. So I'm a gnat. I forget questions, even though I write them down. When you tell your family, hey, I'm getting into professional wrestling, what do they say?
Um, I don't think I told them right away. And it was probably when I've been training for a couple months where I like opened up about it. I think my family has gotten used to me as a person, in the sense that, like I'm
Good, bad, or
Indian,
ugly, right?
What's that?
Good, bad, or ugly, right? And I don't mean any of that mean, but yeah.
No, exactly. No, for sure. It's like, I think maybe initially when I was like younger and I first started like dressing in black and kind of looking a bit more alternative, they were like, what the hell? And, they had more apprehensions about it. Cause like, as an Indian girl, like I'm fully Indian. It's not typical. But over time, after enough piercings and tattoos. I think they just kind of let that go, the idea that I'd be this traditional Indian chick. So when I told them I was wrestling, they weren't super surprised. It was like, oh, cool, sounds fun. They were trying to be encouraging, but yeah, I think they got over that hurdle from when I was younger.
Now they're merch makers with you and helping you do everything you possibly can, right?
Just about. They're really supportive about it, especially like they're so curious about it and they're really like sweet about it. So it's nice.
So let's talk about that first match. Do you go back and watch it? Do you, and I'm not saying this mean, do you cringe because what you've done, and I haven't seen your first match, to being on ROH recently, like I said before recording, you got it. You really do.
Oh, well, thank you so much. I again really appreciate that. But yeah, I actually haven't seen my first match. I don't know if there might be footage, but I've actually never seen it. I know it wasn't great. It wasn't received great because of like the story that was being told, and the crowd was not into it. It was actually a really terrible first match. Essentially, just to give you kind of context, what the story was is that I was managing someone who I was dating at the time, and he was a heel, so we were like both heels, and pretty much he was up against this like super white meat like babyface guy named Frank Milano, and we just kept like screwing him over essentially out of like championship shots. Like we did crazy, we put this guy through a table, like we like broke a beer bottle over this guy's head. Like there were so many, it was like really elaborate. And so at some point, there was kind of a setup where, okay, now you're finally going to get a shot at this title, and there's not going to be any sort of interference and whatever. And it was kind of like it was essentially a trick, okay? Because like essentially Frank Milano comes out, but it's not Fernando de la Cruz, the guy I was managing. It's me, right? The manager. And people were not freaking happy because we got like nuclear heat when we were there, and they were not happy with that stipulation at all. And yeah, like, and Frank Milano being the good guy, he doesn't want to hurt a girl, and they want me to get my ass kicked at this point. So they were like booing me, and like they're like, what the fuck are you doing here? And then booing him because he wasn't like hitting me. It was kind of a disaster, actually. It was a disaster. So yeah, I remember in retrospect it was a disaster. I don't know if I wanted to see it, to be honest. But honestly, even now, I've gotten better with it. But like up until recently, any match of mine that I'd watch, I'd usually cringe. It's really difficult for me to watch my matches. But obviously, it's very important to know what you're doing right or wrong and to correct yourself, because it's totally different doing something like, in person, whatever, and then seeing it on camera. You think it looks one way, you think it looks great, and then on camera it looks like shit, or vice versa. You do something, you're like, that probably looked like shit, and on camera it's like barely noticeable. So it's really important to watch your matches back, which I've been doing for like most of my matches when I get footage. I'm cringing less these days, but sometimes I'm still like, it's tough.
If you find footage of that whole first drama, and I will not say anything about your action or anything, if you're getting white heat on your first match, pissing people off, you're over already. I could only imagine. That sounds the Booker brilliant.
Yeah, it was a really great setup. I can't say there's usually much like that on the indies. Usually maybe there's mini storylines or it's just like random matches. But I gotta say, it was actually Fernando de la Cruz who came up with that and offered those ideas to the booker, and they were kind of working together with Frank Milano. It's kind of like the group working together. I have to, hats off to him. They actually did a really good job when it came to like the intricacies of it, the storyline. It was a really well developed story. So that finally, when Frank Milano won, it was this crazy 3 stages of hell match. And he won, and all the stuff that we did to him, he did to us. He put us through like, it was a door, he like everything. There was a callback to a lot of the things that we did, so it was pretty good.
Yeah, you definitely don't see that on the indie as much. You really don't. So that deep of a storyline, excuse me, is awesome.
Yeah.
This is the big question, and don't answer. Who is the Cobra Katrina Creed? So before you answer, I
Mhm.
have 3 wrestlers after watching a couple matches who
Mhm.
I compare you to.
Okay.
1, Victoria. The look, all of that. You got that. 2 moves. I see a lot of Sasha / Jericho, but because Jericho, Matt Menard, yada yada yada, that whole system right down the line. And then 3, Statlander, because you're taller, bigger. What I don't mean big, slap me through the phone. But
Mhm.
you can move, you can fly, you could still do that, but you're a fucking roughhouse too.
Mhm.
How close am I?
Yeah. Hmm. I I do love Victoria. I think she's actually my favorite female wrestler from that era. I really think she does not get enough credit. She was really really good, and as a wrestler, she was like fantastic. So I don't know if I take inspiration from her, maybe partly, but I really really respect and admire her. And like I said, she's honestly probably my favorite from that era. I love Chris Statlander as well. Again, I don't know how much inspiration I take from her, but I love her. I love what she's doing. I think she's such a badass, and I just love her style and how strong she is, and built, and yeah, just straight up a badass, hard hitting. I love that. Like I really try to um, obviously use that as a wrestler. Like I don't really want to be light about anything. I want it to look legitimate and real. I love Jericho. I love Jericho a lot, so it would make sense. And Sasha Banks too. She's also a really excellent wrestler. I wouldn't say I take inspiration from her, but I definitely respect her as a wrestler for sure.
Who are the 3
So
then?
I don't know, kind of a mix.
You don't know the 3 that you would pull up?
Oh, for myself.
Yeah.
Oh, for myself. Well, I don't normally pattern myself after any one wrestler. I take inspiration from a lot of different wrestlers. But recently, I started because I typically get booked as a heel just because the way I look and stuff like that. I'm alternative and whatever. So
You're the
usually I get
Cobra,
booked as,
for God's
yeah,
sake.
yeah, right. That doesn't help. It
No.
doesn't help at all. So I actually started watching more Jay White matches because he is a great heel. He's a career heel as well. And a lot of the stuff that I see online, when they relate to like, a lot of comments when they talk about like his style and stuff, they just say he's really a good counter wrestler and he moves like a snake, right? Which is my gimmick. So I'm like, well, like maybe I should look more into like this guy and what he does and look kind of like pattern myself a bit after him. And I realized there's some stuff that I've been doing like him without realizing. It's not like it was intentional. It's just how I move sometimes with certain things. It's similar to how he does stuff, but I'm trying to pattern myself more after him. Just because he's very slimy and sneaky, and um, I feel like sometimes I don't get enough heat as a heel, and sometimes I have people cheering for me, even if I'm doing really underhanded stuff. They still sometimes cheer for me, and I'm really trying to find a way to make people hate me more. So hence Jay White. So I'm definitely patterning myself after him a lot. I don't know if I'd say I'm in. Well, maybe I really do love Rhea Ripley a lot. Um, and so I do take a lot of inspiration from her just to be like kind of like that strong, like similar to Statlander, like you were saying, just like that strong, hard hitting girl who's a powerhouse. Like I try to incorporate that in there. Um, but yeah, there's just so many people I'm constantly trying to learn from. I think there's so many great wrestlers out there that can offer such a great wealth of knowledge, that I'm always just kind of, there's not any one person typically.
Okay. In your tape study, how far back will you go? Will you only go to like the Ministry of Darkness? We go 70s, 80s, Gotch era? How far are you going back?
Well, I'd say mostly I do like modern stuff, 2000s, maybe a bit of 90s. But sometimes, based on my coach's suggestions, he's really big into like more 80s wrestling, 70s and stuff like that. So I'll watch some of his suggestions sometimes, and I'll go that far back based on that. It's not something that I am super familiar with. 80s obviously more so, 70s and stuff not really. But based on his suggestions, I'll watch that stuff too for sure.
All right. So let's take a little bit of a break from wrestling and do the nerd stuff and, the silly questions that I pre-warned you about, essentially. So day off. You're not doing wrestling. You're not going to the gym. You're taking a legit day off. What are you doing?
Oh man, I don't know if there's really an off day as a wrestler, to be honest.
Right.
Um, like seriously, if I'm not, I'm almost always doing something related to wrestling, primarily. If it's not training and like working out, it's like going to wrestling practice. If it's not that, it's actual shows. If it's not that, it's podcasts. If it's not that, it's making content. If it's not that, it's studying tape. If it's not that, it's working on promos. If it's not that, it's reaching out to promoter. Like literally almost everything I do is related to wrestling somehow on my off time. But I do, if not that, I'll do yoga sometimes to like kind of repair my body and physio. But um, something I actually do for myself is I like playing League of Legends. Which is not very, it's not very relaxing at all.
No.
But it's really not. And I'm definitely lying to myself when I'm like, yeah, I'm gonna sit back and relax and play League of Legends. Bullshit. It's super stressful, but I love it. So I love playing League. Um, I love hanging out with my cats. Sometimes I'm not super social. People are surprised to hear that,
Wow.
but I'm more, yeah, I'm more of an introvert for sure. Like I definitely like to spend time on my own and recharge my batteries, but I do like occasionally going out with my friends as well. But I do need time by myself for sure, because in wrestling you're around people constantly, and my job as well. You're always talking to people. Uh, um, so yeah, that's usually it. I started getting into Big Brother recently, which I'm not into reality TV. But
My
I
favorite
love,
one.
yeah, okay. Yeah, Big Brother's awesome. Like I really am not huge on reality TV typically. But my brother and my mom were watching it, and when I'd come in, I'd see that. And I started getting into it, dude. It's a lot more like complicated than I thought it would be. It's pretty interesting. A great like social experiment, honestly.
A lot of backstabbing.
Oh
6 ways to do
yeah.
it. I love it.
Oh yeah, it's too much sometimes. Like especially when you're getting like really like into the show and you really start liking certain people and they have no idea they're about to get screwed over and they're all happy and peppy and these people are plotting their demise and oh my God, and so many shifting alliances. It's too much of an emotional roller coaster sometimes that after a few episodes I'm like, okay, I need to take a break because this is like exhausting to watch, honestly. Uh,
Really.
um yeah, but it's super interesting.
All right, here we go. Be prepared. If somebody would be you in a documentary, who would that person be?
Okay. I guess I don't know. I think Zoe Saldana is pretty cool. She's pretty badass, so I pick her.
Flip side, who are you being in the documentary?
Oh gosh, who would I like play?
Yeah.
My hmm. If it's not myself, I don't know.
Well, you can't do yourself.
Uh,
Yeah, no. That's you. No loopholes there. You have to.
I don't know. I guess depending on when the movie's taking place, maybe a younger version of me, or maybe I could put on some like special effects makeup and an older version of me. I don't know, a documentary about me. Hmm, geez, I don't know. Maybe my mom? I really don't know.
Mom, dad moment of the show. There it is. You're gonna be your mom. I love it. Do you really like snakes?
I'm not, I don't know if they creep me out, but they're not my favorite. I don't, I'm not huge on that. I primarily took inspiration because of like other things I'm really into, like Metal Gear Solid. I love Solid Snake. There's like a few other reasons I came up with that as a nickname. But the animals themselves, not huge on them. No.
I thought you were gonna tell me. Yeah, hold on right now. I'll go get my python or something. I'm
Yeah.
like, all right, well, bye. I would die looking at it over Skype or Zoom or wherever
Oh,
the hell we're on right now. All right. So we do something where a past guest throws you a question, and let me play it for you right now.
okay.
Hi, this is Gina Marie, and my question is if you could have dinner with any three people, dead or alive, who would they be?
Hmm. I guess probably Stephen Hawking, because I know before he passed away, obviously he's one of the brightest minds that we had, but before he passed away, he was talking about how we need to be really careful about AI and how that will be the demise of human civilization. And considering how rampant it is already, I'd like to just hear his thoughts on that and just place him in this context and see what he would say about it. Also, just pick his brain about other stuff he might know about the universe, because clearly this guy knows what's up. And I'm pretty interested. I used to be more so, but I'm still pretty interested in just like space in general, just the idea of like what reality is. Just those kind of topics are very interesting to me. So I'd like to pick his brain about that as well. Um, hmm. Other than that, I would say Jay White because I'm very interested in him as a wrestler, but I'm so nervous around him that I don't think I would be able to say anything. The two times I've met him, I just kind of shut down. So I don't know. I don't know if I want Jay White there. I wouldn't be able to talk to him, I don't think. So maybe not him. Let's see. Hmm. Maybe Matt Lee, my trainer. It's been a while. He's hilarious. He's a really funny guy. What you see on camera is more or less how he is. Obviously a bit more dialed down, but he's a super funny guy. So it'd be nice to catch up with him again. And I guess like maybe my dad as well. He passed away last year, so it'd be nice to just be able to say hey to him again.
You hit all three levels. You hit the inquisitive one. You just pulled the heartfelt one out. I love you now, by the way. So that's awesome. And then you're definitely gonna have dinner with Jay White. Matt, for sure. Whatever. Go grab a burger with him. But you and Jay White, listen, it's gonna happen, right?
Oh God, I don't know. I don't know if I could take it.
You're smitten a little bit, huh? I'm sorry.
Yeah, it's just, like he's really like the guy out of the two in that match versus Kenny Omega and Jay White. Like it was primarily him. I was really drawn to his wrestling and his character. And yeah, I'm not normally starstruck, but when it comes to wrestling, I definitely am, because I guess as a wrestler, it's just, this person's doing what you're doing, and obviously you're you just want to learn everything about wrestling and about them as a person and whatever. It kind of adds a different layer. So yeah, definitely starstruck when it comes to Jay White.
Oh, I get it. As a ring announcer, I get to announce, the locals and everything, but then once in a while we bring somebody in. One of the times we brought Doink in, and no disrespect to Doink, but it's Doink the Clown, right?
Yeah.
I was just sweating. I'm like, this is Doink freaking the Clown, and I get to announce him tonight, yada, yada, yada. So I completely understand. I'm a mark. I really am a mark. I meet you someplace, someone would be like, Katrina, and you're like, oh, God, this guy.
I get it, though.
Yeah.
I get it. I think we're all pretty much marks, underneath. We all are.
You have to be to love this business, right?
Definitely.
So, do you have any hidden talent? Last stupid question. Do you have any hidden talents?
I don't know if this is a talent, but if I breathe really hard, my nostrils kind of like pull into the septum. And I've never met anyone who could do that.
They don't
So
flare out like the normal human beings do. They come in.
yeah.
Do it. Nobody else is going to see this but me.
Yeah. Okay. I'll try. I don't know if you can see because the lighting, but
I do. Oh my God. It's clearly
right?
visible. I'm sorry. Definitely a talent. Yeah. I don't know for what, but
yeah. I mean, I don't know if it's talent, but it's a thing. And I thought for the longest time other people could do it, and I brought it up to, I can't even remember, one of my friends back in the day, and they're like, "The hell are you talking about?" And then started asking other people, and apparently other people can't do that. So yeah.
No, mine's no.
Yeah.
So again, want to congratulate you. You were recently on ROH. Big
thanks.
match against Layla Hirsch.
Mm-hmm.
Tell me about that experience. How does that come about? And I'm a fat guy. How was catering?
Well, first off, catering was awesome. I gotta say, AEW is pretty dope. They have I'm a vegetarian, and both times I went, they had vegetarian options laid out as well as meat options and just a variety of things. So it's pretty cool. And it's like protein-based veggie stuff. So it's not just like a salad. So that was really nice. Yeah. And they have pretty good catering. They had a lot of different options, even meat options. They had a variety of different flavors that looked pretty good, not gonna lie. And even the dessert options were great. Obviously you try to stay away from that as much as possible, but they had some pretty good cakes. I'm honestly, huge fan. AEW catering, love it. I couldn't ask for more. And Layla Hirsch was great. The whole experience was amazing. I first I saw Matt Lee again, Matt Menard. So that was really great. He was super excited that I got a match, and he for sure saw that I was like freaking out because he'd keep coming to me and be like, "You got this. It's okay. Just do what you've been doing. You're all right." So that helped to calm me down a bit. Uh, but Layla Hirsch was super, super nice. She was very, very sweet, super accommodating, very, very giving. She came up with the match structure. I just kind of plugged my stuff in. She was very giving in that sense and just like super sweet. I couldn't say enough good things about her. Obviously, like on camera, she looks a bit intimidating and it's like, yo, this shit could probably fuck me up. And so I was like, man, I wonder how she's going to be in person, but she's super, super nice. And yeah, like we both just had a really good time. We both really liked the match. Everyone was just so great there. Like every time like I said, I've been there twice now. And both times everyone was just like super nice and accommodating. So I had a really great time backstage. It was honestly such a great memory that I'll cherish forever.
Did you get to pick anybody's brain back there? Any other gals? Any of the guys? Clearly, you hid from Jay White, but all of that.
um so it's like I don't want to get in everyone's space, right? Like it's so like contradictory in a way and a bit confusing because like typically on the indies when you go backstage you say hi to everyone, right? But we're told not just in AEW but WWE that when you're backstage you kind of have to keep your distance, right? So you don't know. It's like, was this a trick? Because we're taught to say hi to everyone usually, and now we can't. So, you know, what I do is I just kind of like stand there and smile if people are passing by. Most people reciprocated, others maybe not so much, but you just kind of keep your distance. You don't want to get in their space and be that guy, you know. There were some people who came up to us themselves and shook our hands. Eddie Kingston being one of them. So at the very beginning, he saw we were all like huddled, like scared little cattle, as extras, just like looking around us. And he came up to us and shook each of our hands, and he said, if I'm the only person that comes to say hi to you and no one else does, well, fuck them." Okay, that's pretty funny. But yeah, so we try to keep our distance. There's so many people I wanted to talk to and just get to know better. But, out of respect, I just kind of stayed in my spot and let them do their thing. So, yeah.
In time, you'll be sharing the roster, the travels with them all the time, right?
Hopefully, that is the dream.
It's gonna happen. Stop. You have to talk it into permission. It will happen. So, how much wrestling do you get to watch? And I'm not saying tape study or anything. How much wrestling do you get to watch nowadays? And can you watch it as that little girl that loved The Undertaker? Or is it always ripping apart everybody's match? And it's no disrespect because everybody does it.
Yeah, I unfortunately I can still enjoy wrestling to some extent, but I'm always analyzing stuff. I'm always everything I watch now, unfortunately, whether it's out on the indies or if I'm part of a show and I finish my match, I'll always, if I have time, I'll always go and watch other matches. Anything I'm watching now, I'm always analyzing. So it kind of takes the fun out of it sometimes, but I feel like wrestling is still such a spectacle, and there's some matches that are just so good and built so well that I can still be in awe, like I can still watch a match and pick it apart, but still be like, wow, that was fucking good. Or wow, the way they did that, like amazing. And it's almost like it takes me out of it in a general way. But when it comes to specific things, sometimes I'm almost more into it because I realize how difficult it is to pull that off or how hard it is to do something or how creative a spot was or maybe some sort of transition. So it's kind of like, yeah, in a way, I can't appreciate it as I did when I was younger, but I can appreciate it in a different way too.
If you had one match, and if it's this one, kudos. One match to show a non-wrestling fan a match, which one do you show?
Oh man, I feel like that's a difficult question because I'd almost have to put myself into like a fan mindset as opposed to a worker mindset because I feel like the match that I would want to show as a worker would probably be different and probably would not appeal as much to someone who maybe doesn't know wrestling. Geez.
I thought you were
I
really
mean,
going. I thought you were going to go White Omega right off the bat. That's why I thought it was going to be an easy question for you.
no, I feel like that was such a niche thing, and there might be some people, that would be drawn to that, but it's just I'm trying to actually think of if like I had to show someone a match to really get them drawn into wrestling, and they have no idea about it. Um, I mean, it would probably have to be something with like one of like the top guys, right? Something with like Hogan, or like Austin or The Rock or anything, because there's these bigger than life characters. You'd have to give them the build up to it, right? There'd have to be a build up. It couldn't just be the match. Something involving them that could really bring them in because they were the top draws for a reason, Yeah, I'd have
That,
to go with something involving them.
that's good. I love it. Wrestling in Canada compared to US difference. What do you see different?
Yeah, so there's definitely a difference. I've only had one American booking so far. I have a few more that are coming up this year, but as of now, I've only had that one booking. And the main difference that I saw, um, it's just how much talent is in one area. Like, I had a booking in New Jersey for IGB, Intergender Bonanza, and it was in the H2O place, and there's like maybe I don't know, there were maybe like 50 people or so, I'd say. Um, but it's just the amount of talent that was in that backstage area, for like a smaller show compared to maybe some of the bigger shows where there's maybe a few hundred or whatever was kind of crazy, Like Marcus Mathers was there. Um, Zeta Steele or Zeta Steele. She was also there, and they're both with MLW right now, or at least they're making appearances with them. Nick Wayne was just hanging out backstage, and he was just there. He wasn't even on the show. He was just hanging out. Sue Young was there, from Impact. All super super nice people. But it's just crazy, It's like you'd go to like an indie, a Canadian indie. Where it's like maybe one of the bigger ones, and there's like a few hundred people, and there's not that much talent, maybe even those for those shows. So that was like pretty crazy to see for sure.
Okay. All right. All right. Here's the toughest question you're going to get on the show.
Okay.
If you could change something in professional wrestling, what would you change? Because there's stigma, there's this, there's that. You understand where I'm going. What would
Yeah.
you get out of professional wrestling if you could wave your wand and get one thing out?
Oh man. So unfortunate to say, but there's a lot of like sleazy people sometimes in wrestling. More so like I'm a metalhead and I hung around the metal scene for a while. I wasn't in a band, but I had a lot of friends who were in bands. And maybe it was the time frame, but like I never heard of as much like crazy shit happening in the metal scene versus like here. There's a lot of like weird sleazy kind of stuff happening sometimes. Not everyone, of course. There's a lot of good people as well. But yeah, if I could change that for sure.
Yeah, I'm waving the flag with you. It
Yeah.
happens all over. We've had a couple of people on just blatantly tell stories. I'm like, whoa, we don't want these completely out there, but yeah, some real
Yeah.
heads out there.
Mhm.
What's the best advice you've gotten behind the curtain?
Hmm. God, I've gotten a lot of good advice. Like a lot of good advice. I think I, gosh, there's a lot, but if I wouldn't say if I have to pick one because there's too many I'd have to pick, but one of the ones I'd pick is make sure everything means something. Everything you're doing, make sure it has purpose. Don't just throw a bunch of moves in or a bunch of transitions in or whatever for nothing. Make it mean something and have it build up to something. So the crowd reacts more to it and really understands what's happening and can process it.
Yeah, this is not Katrina saying it. This is Mark. I slap Ricochet in the face all the time for that. I love him. He's uber athletic.
Yes.
I don't need 17 cartwheels to get an elbow. It doesn't
Yeah.
do anything to me, right?
Yeah. No, I know what you mean, and exactly as you're saying, he's super athletic. God, I mean, I can't even do like 75% of the shit this guy does and probably never could. But that's the thing. It's just like the human brain. It's just if we see too much of the same thing, it gets oversaturated and it takes away from like that final moment or, so for sure. I get what you're saying.
But I love him. Again,
No,
flip
same.
side. You have a little child come up, now not little, but a child come up to you and say, Katrina, you are my Undertaker, you are my John Cena, you are whatever. You have somebody out there. I don't know if you've had that moment yet, but it's coming. And they say, hey, I want to be just like you. What advice do you give them?
Oh, first off, I have to say I love kids. In wrestling, I'm not even a kid person, but kids are the best part. They're great. But if that were to happen, geez, I don't know. I'd say, well, if you really want to get into it, just make sure whatever school you join has proper coaches that know what they're doing. Have coaches that aren't bad people and have your best interest at heart, which can be hard to do. We're very lucky at our school that we have that. And make sure the school that you go to is well connected. Because sometimes it doesn't matter how good you are as a wrestler. It's really important to have those connections in wrestling. It's a lot of it's networking. So look out for those things when you're choosing a school for sure. And don't just join any school.
Right. Yeah. Don't join one that I have, because
Oh.
I can teach you to announce or podcast. I don't know anything about it in the ring. So don't come to Can Crushers Wrestling Academy. Okay. Goals for this year in 2024.
I just want to wrestle in as many promotions as possible, newer promotions. I want to go to new provinces in Canada, new states in the US, new countries, honestly. So I actually have a few bookings in different states already, which is pretty cool. It's kind of hard to do as a Canadian, especially starting off. So I'm really stoked about that, which is awesome. I'm going to see if it aligns, but I'm going to try to do like a UK tour. I'd like to do it for longer, but it's just hard with the bookings I have now. So I'm going to try to go for like 3 to 4 weeks to the UK and Europe and try to do that in June. So those are like the main things. AEW is coming back to Canada. So I'm going to try to do all the dates. If they accept me, I will do all of their dates. So those are the main goals for this year.
2 years out now, 2026. We're skipping 25. 2026. Where do you want to be? Please do not say a company, because I'm sure any company signs you, you're like, yes. So where do you want to be?
A specific company? Well,
No,
obviously,
don't say a
No.
company, because that's
Okay. Well,
bad
then,
news sometimes.
Okay. So outside of that, I guess I do really want to wrestle in Japan. And so I'm actually gonna try to make that happen by that point. I don't know for how long, like I'd go there, but I definitely want to wrestle in Japan by that point. I want to, again, just expand more in Canada, expand more in the States, definitely have more of a presence in the northeastern United States as well as Ontario, because I feel like, and even the west coast of the US, because I feel like those are the main places you could be seen. Of course, you could be seen anywhere, but there's a huge wealth of talent there. And I feel like there's a lot of talent scouts that go there. So I definitely want to have more of a presence in those areas for sure.
Okay. Yeah, I say never name a company, because listen, I know Tony Khan listens, and
Really?
Triple H has people listening. They're like, oh, Katrina doesn't want to come here. Well, scratch her off the name. She was going to be signed next week. Never mind. So I always make sure you guys don't say anybody like that.
Well, thank you.
Welcome.
I mean, I'm open for any company, honestly. Let me tell you.
You're
Just
ready.
saying.
Favorite question of mine before it's your time. Your dream match, but I have a caveat for it. Who, what stipulation, and where?
Oh, definitely Rhea Ripley. I mean, she's working with WWE, so WrestleMania. I mean, why not? Stipulation. Geez, I don't know. Honestly, let's go no DQ. Let's make it freaking crazy at that point. Let's make it wild.
I had you in a cage. I instantly put you in a cage. I don't know why. I thought, as crazy ass as you're going to be, you're going to want to go in a cage.
That could work.
Yeah.
That could work.
Is there a match out there you wouldn't do?
I don't know anymore. For the longest time, I told myself I would never do death matches. I'd only do hardcore sparingly and if it called for it, which I still think is important. But I started not willingly, but by chance, doing more hardcore matches. And I like them a lot more than I thought I would. So, which was really surprising to me, but now I'm kind of into it. So a death match isn't out of the question anymore. Not I'm not saying if anyone's listening, don't book it, but like I'm just saying potentially down the line, maybe it's not outside of the realm of possibility.
Okay, good. That's what I wanted to hear from you. I really did. All right, this is your time. Give everybody your socials. If they're not following you, they're stupid. Do you have any merch if they want to buy it from you from your socials? And where are you going to be here in the next couple months?
Yeah, so you can follow me on Twitter at Katrina Creed, Katrina with a K, Creed with the C. On Instagram, it's at @creed. And yeah, those are my socials we got over the next couple months. I have almost every weekend I'm booked for the most part. Sometimes I'm doing double weekends. Oh, my phone's about to die at 5%, so I'm gonna make this quick. But yeah, so a few feds in Quebec, Ontario. I have some feds in the States that I'll be working for as well. In February, I'll be in New York. So if you're in Albany, I'll be working the diner. And I'll be actually up against Tana James. Primarily will be, I can list off the feds, but if not, you can see on my socials. I have all my bookings there for the next 2 months or so. For merch, I do have 8x10s. They're not fully on my socials, but if you want to DM me, I can definitely show you, my 8x10s and send them out to you. So that's what I got going on. Looking into getting some shirts.
There you go. There you go. Katrina, this has been a blast. I know your phone's dying, so we're going to do it quick. Thank you so much for coming on and sharing your story.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Thank you so much for doing this with me. I had so much fun, and thank you again for all the kind words. I really, really appreciate it.
This is Donnie Bambino, one half of the Bad Fellas, and you're listening to Can Crushers. I don't know how you're listening to it, but I'll tell you what, you better leave a 5-star or I'll come visit you. And you don't want me knocking at your door.
You better leave that 5-star review. I can find out where you're at, and Donnie Bambino will come knocking at your door, and you really don't want that. He's a brute. He really is. Sometimes I always wonder if I am in the family of the Bad Fellas, and then sometimes I get scared. Nonetheless, how about that interview with Katrina Creed, the Cobra? By the way, every time I say, hey, there's dad moments, I truly mean it. Like, mom and dad, da-da-da-da-da, these stories come out, and I really feel something when independent stars are telling their story here on Can Crushers. This is why the spotlight was created. So if you're out there and you're listening, man, I'd love to hear your story. If you want to tell your story, reach out. Any of those DMs that I said at the beginning of the show, or cancrusher69@gmail.com, just reach out. So, yeah, I'm glad she doesn't like snakes. I really, really, I'm glad. I was expecting, because we recorded this, as you can tell, kind of over Zoom. And technology, sometimes you had those little blips here and there in it. But that's because it was snowing and windier than bejesus when we recorded this. So, yeah, I apologize for that. But you got the gist of the stories. Nothing was really hindered from what Katrina had to say. But I was not hoping, but I was maybe expecting that she'd be like, yeah, this is my Python, I don't know, Merle or something. And I'm like, oh my, I don't know if I'd be able to do an interview like that, by the way, with somebody like holding a snake the whole time. Or my camera would be off, or I'd shut their cameras off, whatever. Guys, I digress. Sometimes me and Taz just go down the wrong path sometimes. Guys, support indie wrestling. That's number one. Support Katrina Creed. Make sure you're following her. A couple times on ROH, Canada rocking it out of this world, getting some bookings over here in America this year. I'm telling you, we're tossing them up and we're nailing them out of the ballpark. Maybe not Expo's ballpark, but again, this was fun. It really was fun. So, Katrina, you're listening again. Thank you very much for coming on the show. This was a blast. Guys, remember, just because you're trash doesn't mean you can't do great things. It's called a garbage can, not a garbage cannot. Make sure you tell your loved ones you love them, because you never know.